Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at pogroupadvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. Welcome to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I'm very excited to have someone all the way from New Zealand. Is that right, Giles?
Yeah.
Morning, bright and early in New Zealand, afternoon here. So Giles Pearson was a partner for 18 years with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then he co-founded Accountests to give accounting firm employers the ability to make informed decisions when hiring. So Accountests provides pre-employment testing that evaluates candidate skills and personality, allowing public accounting firms to hire fast with confidence. Well, I bet you're a busy guy right now, Giles.
Hi, Brandon. Yeah, it's nice to be here and talking to you. Yep, life's pretty busy, and I guess with the end of tax season, people are starting to get out and thinking about doing some hiring for next time. So yeah, things are ticking along.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into this in the podcast, but employment's a big issue right now. There's a little bit of a shortage in the U.S. and Canada for accountants in general. Fewer people going into the profession, so the staffing is a challenge right now. So, but before we get into all that, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing this and why you chose accounting. I guess you were, as a partner with PwC, how did you, tell me a little bit about your career and how you chose accounting?
Yeah, well, it was a pretty traditional route to accounting, to be fair. So, I was at high school. I did accounting. I got a scholarship to Coopers and Lybrand, as it was in those days, right from high school. So, our office, which obviously became PwC here in New Zealand, is about the size of one of your football teams. So it's like 45 people in the office. So it's just like a mid-sized firm. And this is the office I was in sort of regional New Zealand. So a lot of agricultural based clients, fruit processing, meat processing. So yeah, I started there after college, and it's a great experience, and I guess you've got the smaller office, so 4 partners, sort of 40 staff. So you had that collegiality, but you also had the PwC in the background, if you like, all the time. The big tiger was always there. But PwC has a lot of good resources, has an immense collegiality. And a huge ability to reach out to people who can help you with any problem that you've got. So from that point of view, the PwC experience was just awesome. But I always said, when the kids leave home, I'm going to quit. So the kids left home and I quit. But one of the things that I guess frustrated me towards the end of my time there was, we would hire people who didn't turn out the way that we expected. And there was one particular incident where we hired this person who everything about them was, she was a lovely person, but resume stacked up, interviewed really well. We took her on, and it was like she just had no idea. And it was such a frustrating experience, because none of us go into accounting knowing how to do people management, knowing how to deal with conflict. None of this stuff is things that we either learn or want to do generally. I got my kicks out of advising clients, and that's I think probably what most CPAs, that's what they go to work for. So having to deal with issues like that were challenging, and so at the time, after that particular incident, we went out and said, let's find some skills tests so that we get a bit of a heads up on these people that are coming in. And I hooked up with Steve Evans, who is now my business partner. He's got 25 years in testing and assessment, and he scoured the world looking for some skills tests for us because he didn't have anything, and he couldn't find anything anywhere that was of a quality that we thought was appropriate for sort of CPA level and sub CPA level tests for people. There's a few tests out there for lower levels, but so I guess that was the genesis of the idea. So when I finished at PwC, it was like, well, let's I've got plenty of time now. Let's give this one a little bit of a nudge. So we built ourselves a testing suite for New Zealand, and went out there and knocked on doors and to see if it would go, and I guess it did. And we then took that to Australia, took that to the UK, and then sort of early 2022 finished up a test suite for the US, which we sort of tinkered along with last year and got a bit more serious, to be fair, this year about really trying to get the message out there across the USA. So it's been fun.
Well, good. And we have a lot of Canadian listeners too. I guess maybe not in Canada. Don't have anything for the Canadian market right now.
So we do have what we call like an international test suite. So for example, for CPA public accounting firms, we do have tests for that worldwide, but they're just not country specific. So for example, there's no tax questions in those, whereas for those other markets, we've got tests that are specific for those markets. So if you want to test a candidate in Canada on say advisory skills, financial reporting, or sort of more basic accounting, we've got all of that stuff. We just don't have, for example, Canadian tax.
Okay, fair enough. And how long ago did you start Accountest? How long have you been going?
So that was 2016 when I finished at PwC. To be fair, my intention when I left was not to go back and start working full time. So I surely didn't, and spent probably the first 3 or 4 years, literally doing 4 or 5 hours a week. And yeah, it's ramped up since then. So for the last sort of 12 months, it's been pretty full on.
Oh wow, yeah, you kind of did startup the way most people don't do startup, like really slow and ease into it. You hear about these hectic startups that work, all hours of the day to get it going, and
right.
You kind of turn that on its head. So bad hires. I actually just had a bad experience myself. We hired an operations manager. She worked about 90 days and then she resigned because she felt like it wasn't a good fit. And in all fairness to us, it was a brand new role, so we didn't quite know. There were some unknowns. So I guess with that, you're going to have a little bit higher failure rate. But yeah, it's stressful. So, I mean, you mentioned the one experience you had with the girl that just really caught you off guard after having to get resumes. I talk with practitioners all the time, and I hear some of the horror stories, and yeah. So I'm guessing what are we trying to avoid here? Tell us what happens with these bad hires, and what sort of experiences are people really needing to avoid?
Yeah, so it was interesting. In January, I came over to the US and spent a month tripping around, mostly California and Arizona, meeting with lots of CPA firms and bookkeeping firms and asking them about their experiences. And there was a mixture of things that people were finding challenging. I had one owner who said, 1 in 4 hires for him didn't work out. Now, quite what he meant by didn't work out was a range of people who he had to let go to people who were just a disappointment, but he struggled through. I had many stories of people who were just technical failures. They and really very similar to mine. People coming on board, resume looks fine, maybe ask a few questions at interview, and then just finding out that their technical knowledge just wasn't where you expected it to be. Again, people struggle through because it's like, where else are you going to find someone? But that's a challenging process. People who and there's one particular instance that I recall was a remote firm where they pulled somebody out of a firm where they were working in the office, and they pulled them out to be remote, and it was this person just did no work, spent all day on online shopping sites, and they downloaded the software on their computer. In the end, when the lies sort of just kept coming and the work wasn't being produced, they went on and had a look, and this person was just not doing any work for them. So so there was another. So that was not a technical failure, I guess. That was a failure of personality and being unsuitable. We hit some stories, and this is not something that you find here in New Zealand, but certainly in the US, several stories of sort of people being serial litigators, basically, who would get a job with the intention of either quitting or being fired, and then taking action against the company for unfair dismissal, and just basically living on settlements. So that was pretty disappointing. And again, you get to the point where somebody's resume is actually, it's almost a worthless piece of paper. So lots of experiences of bad hires. And you look at, Robert Half have done some good work around looking at the cost of this, and it's anywhere between 50 and 200% of starting salary. But the surveys that they've done actually said, as you mentioned before, the stress is actually the number one issue for firms, and the number two issue is the demotivation of the team. So cost actually came out at number three. And again, I think especially for smaller firms, perhaps more, you don't go into business to have to deal with this sort of stuff. And it's so demotivating when what you want to do is work with clients, give great advice, and have a team that you enjoy doing that with. So
right.
Yeah,
it's definitely stressful. I mean, I can attest to that from being employed in my own business for a long time and having made some really bad hires. It's very stressful, and I think the resume can be definitely misleading. Interviews can be misleading too. Interviewing is not, and you get little tidbits, and it can help. But now, is Accountests primarily focused on technical ability, or does it also focus on personality and temperament and other factors?
Yeah, we started with skills, and the majority of the tests we've got on the site are for skills. So that's, in a public accounting sense, that's all the way from sort of CPA level through non-CPA sort of staff accountant level down to bookkeepers, debits and credits, college graduates. But we then also, this was about 3 years ago, started to develop the world's only personality profile for accountants. So ACCA, actually out of the UK, did a really good study on, what are the qualities you need to be a successful modern accountant, and we then developed that, or developed those concepts into a personality profile. So if you're familiar with the sort of big five idea of personality profiles, these are the ones that, if you like, actually work, where there's some science, and you don't come out with the person being described as a bird or a color or something, because those are fun, but then there's no science behind those, and they don't ask enough questions. Whereas the Big Five tests, they ask a lot of questions, and they're using questions that have been road tested with hundreds of thousands of people. So we knew where to access those question sets, and we then built a test specifically based on things that are more important to accounting firms than perhaps some other qualities. So,
Right.
Problem solving, ability to deal with pressure, communication, attention to detail, things that are important in accounting, and I guess came out of that ACCA study. So that's, I guess, is the other part of what we do is the personality testing, and that's not only at hiring, that's also relevant for people in post, because there's no wrong answers, of course, in a personality. And if you've got somebody who you want to bring through to partner or to owner, then those sort of tests can be helpful to as a conversation starter to you want to be a leader of this business. You want to you're going to need to go out and find clients. You're going to need to lead and mentor the team. Let's have a look at where you are and what sort of gaps you might have. Our reports come out with a personality a personal development plan based on the report. So gives a conversation starter if you've got people that you want to bring through from those sort of more doing roles.
Right. Now, you mentioned the Big Five tests. You mean like Myers-Briggs and Strengths Finders? What are the Big Five? Just I'm sure somebody's listening on what are the Big Five?
So look, I'm not an expert on personality profiles. This is my business partner Steve's area, but yeah. Big Five is a recognised way of describing tests that cover. There are sort of like 5 personality types.
Okay.
And so there's things like 16FP would be one where they cover these 5 personality types. Myers-Briggs, for example, it was a party game. That was how it was developed, and it only asks, I think, 24 questions. You can't judge somebody's personality asking 24 questions. It's just not possible. So, but it's good. It's a great tool for sort of like a team bonding exercise and some fun. But there's no, and there have been studies done. There's no scientific basis for using Myers-Briggs in a hiring scenario. There's no correlation between the outputs of a Myers-Briggs test and somebody's fit for the role. It's okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, so with your testing, when do firms typically do this? When in the hiring process would you kind of break out these tools in the hiring toolbox, if you will?
Yeah, so most people do that before the final interview. And I think that makes sense. Look, the testing is not cheap. So you don't want to probably use it as a too early in the process, because the costs will just get away on you. But at that sort of final interview phase, you definitely want the ability to discuss the results with the candidate and explore, for example, in personality, the tests may show some gaps between what your expectations and requirements might be and what their preferred working style is, and the interview is the place to explore how they deal with that. So personality tests tell you how people like to work. They don't tell you how they do work, and that's where good interviewing can explore whether they're blind to, if you like, shortcomings, if that's the right way to describe it, but or whether they actually recognise that, for example, they're not a good communicator, and what are the tactics that they use to get around that. With skills, if somebody has done not as well as you'd have hoped for in one of the skills tests, well, there's the opportunity to discuss that with them, discuss more about their experience. And I guess because the skills test is totally objective, what you're trying to use the interview to do is to determine whether this is somebody who's worth investing in. Because if they don't quite have the skills that you want, you're going to have to spend some time getting them up to speed. And are they going to be worth that? And are they going to stay with you when you've invested that time and money into them?
Yeah. Yeah, and I used to do a good bit of hiring in a company past part of my career, and one of the things I always looked for was if they've stayed in previous jobs for a long time. That was the best indicator of longevity. Pretty simple.
I think that's exactly right. And people say to us, candidates really don't want to do these tests because they can just go down the road and get a job where there is no test. And I think part of the thing with this is candidates have options, but they want to fit with the firm, and the firm wants to fit with them. If the candidate's only looking for a role for 12 months, well, if I was the firm owner, I would just go, well, why would I want to employ you? So you're really looking for, if you're looking for people who are going to stay, and they're looking for an employer where they're going to want to stay, then this is all part of a process of get to know you. And the candidate, clearly has some stuff that they need to do to get to know the employer, and they've got work that they need to put in to find out whether this is going to be the right fit for them. But I guess what we do is more about what the employer can find out, and then have that open discussion with the candidate about, this is how it's going to work. This is what we're going to do to help you, train you, mentor you, get you on a path to success.
Yeah, and I think good candidates typically don't mind investing some time in the hiring process because it gives them comfort that you're making a careful decision and you're looking out for the fit. So no, I think that's
what candidates do want though is, and what employers need to do is they need to work fast. And that was, I guess, one of the things that we were really conscious of when we started this was, often with testing, you have to sign up with a firm that provides them, they want to manage the process. They want to give you a report back in person. All of these things can take days, whereas what we wanted to do was, in essence, say, I've got a candidate coming in, in an hour. I want to have a test ready for them to sit, and then I want to look at the results the moment they finish the test, and then go into an interview with them and discuss the results. And that's what we did.
Yeah, so you didn't slow down the process. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, so you said you've been in the U.S. fairly recently. How's that going? How are these tests working out in the U.S. market so far?
I guess what we've discovered is, and many people who've come to the US have discovered, is that it's a tough market. It's a fractured market, not only just because of the whole state system, but I think the public accounting firm market seems to be reasonably siloed. There's a lot of firms who are progressive, and those tend to be the ones that we have been talking to. There's an awful lot of firms who are not, and they're the ones that will
you can help the most.
Well, I was sort of trying to work out how to say that in a nice way, but that's exactly right. These are the firms who probably struggle the most with this stuff. But our challenge and our struggle so far has been how to engage with them when we're trying to develop this as a business that we can market online, because it's really the only way that you can cope with the market. So it's but I've been really impressed with the drive and motivation of some of the firms that we've met with, and particularly some of the firms who are doing 100% remote. I'm really impressed with their ability to scale at pace.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So and that's something I haven't seen, for example, in New Zealand and Australia. So but I guess again the flip side in the US is you can do that in a really narrow niche, and again I've been really impressed with firms who are just going really deep and narrow in a particular segment, and how you can make a success of that in a market the size of the US.
Yeah, we've seen some really fast growing firms, and if you're growing fast, it's all about people for sure, and technology, but people's definitely a big component of that. So another thing that's big as far as topics go is AI right now, and how is that impacting your business?
Everybody's talking about AI, aren't they? It's it's the number one on all the forums. You go into Accounting Today or CPA trend lines or whatever, and it's like it's all there. And AI is the real deal, actually. I think compared, there's last year everybody was talking about crypto and whatever, and I think that's the adoption has been sort of slow and patchy on that, and things like blockchain and whatever. But I think AI, we're seeing practical impacts on firms immediately, and you look at some of the products that are out there who are already building that into their practice management suite. So that's amazing. I think for us, what we've done, we actually have had ChatGPT and Jasper sit our like our most senior public accounting test, which is our CPA level test, and ChatGPT, for example, 93rd percentile in that test. Wow. Which is interesting when I see other commentary about the fact that it's failed the CPA exam. But I think the reality is, it's just learning all the time, and what that showed us was there were deficiencies in its algorithms, and you could sort of you'd expect it to get 100% really, because actually it has the ability to scour the internet for the answers, and why wouldn't it get 100%? So it still has a way to go. I think AI, though, for the profession and for our business, people still need to know stuff, and then communicate that with clients. You can't sit on a client call and not be able to have that discussion in real time. So I think that the requirement for knowledge is going to remain, but the way in which the sorts of knowledge will change. I think the ability to apply knowledge is going to be more important. So I guess what we're thinking about with our testing is the sorts of questions that firms are going to want candidates to answer over the next few years are going to be different, because they're going to be looking for candidates to have some level of base knowledge. Maybe not, you can get away without having that really pointy-headed level of technical knowledge, but you need a level of base knowledge and be able to communicate that and think more than one step. And I think that was one of the things we found with ChatGPT, was it struggled when it had to interpret a situation where the answer was based on an advisor's knowledge. There wasn't just a clear-cut answer on the here's the question and the answer's A. You had to think about what would you do as an advisor in this situation, and it's nuanced, and that's I think it will struggle with that for some time, and that's where you're still going to want value from your CPA.
Yeah, that's where the value is for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, the other big topic is staff shortages. You hear about AI, but I'm hearing increasingly about shortages. What are your views on maybe what could be you could be doing differently if you own a firm? What should firm owners do to help shore up this problem?
Yeah, and it's not a US problem, and it's not a Canadian problem. It's a worldwide problem. I think the US in particular has probably made it harder through the route to licensing is just tortuous, and some of the experiences. Tax season is a really debilitating experience for people. Why would you want to sign up for a profession that requires 5 years professional, or sorry, 5 years post school study, and then go and work crazy hours doing during tax season? It's just nuts. So the profession is not helping itself, and I think there's been some good discussions going on about sort of changing some of those rules, certainly around the 150 hours. But I think firms, one of the things to always think about is that you market yourself to clients. You need to market yourself to candidates, and I think firms need to have in their strategy. The moment a candidate is going to think about coming to you, the first thing they're going to do is jump on social media, and they're going to jump on your website, and they're going to want to find out, and if that experience is poor, then that's an immediate turn off. So I think about what your firm looks like to candidates. Bringing I think the hiring experience and the hiring process is another thing that firms can really work on. A lot of firms don't hire very often, and they don't hire very well. And that's understandable, because if you don't do something very often, you don't tend to become an expert at it. But if you can improve your hiring process, you're going to end up with more likelihood of getting candidates applying for your job, because you're going to describe it better. You're going to be placing, you're going to be using good processes to try and find candidates. And then when you get them into the process, you're going to be able to pick out the better ones quicker, move faster, and get those offers out there and get people in the door more quickly. So we've put a whole lot of resources together for firms to try and help them improve that process. And I guess I always talk to people about business acumen, which is what firms are selling to their clients. So they're selling their knowledge and their experience of other businesses to help clients make good decisions. That's and they won't be perfect decisions, and they won't always work out, but presumably they're better decisions than if the client asked their neighbour across the back fence for some advice, because otherwise the clients are not going to pay. Hiring is the same. It's like you get the outcome based on the quality of the processes that you put into it, and if those processes can be improved, you're going to improve your outcome. Yeah. So those are the I guess, working with the market we have now and the candidates that are out there, those are I guess a couple of things that firms can do to try and win against their competing firms down the road or around the country. The whole topic of taking on people who are coming to accounting as a second career, or coming to accounting straight from high school is another massive topic. And I think there are there are some good things happening out there in that space, but it is, you need to go into that with your eyes open, because it's a long, slow road. And I think, again, the profession probably needs to wake up and smell the roses really on that one, because it's a requirement, and it needs to happen. It needs to be pretty fast.
Wow, this is it's an interesting topic, and I'm sure people could use all the tools they can get. So I'm about to wrap up here. I got a couple more sort of rapid fire questions that I want to finish with. And the first one is, what do you see as the greatest opportunity right now in the profession?
I think everybody's talking about advisory. This is where the profession has got to go. AI is going to push us faster in that way. I think if we're talking public accounting, the whole virtual CFO, virtual controller, I just love that stuff. And I think there's just so much opportunity for firms to add value to clients who don't have that sort of input right now, but also to actually help companies who may have a CFO or a controller but don't really need one, because they're only using their skills for a small part of the time, and they don't get the breadth of experience by just working for one company. Whereas those sort of virtual fractional services, if I was back in practice again, that's what I'd want to be doing. And I think there's just massive opportunity, and AI is not going to challenge that part of what people do. Whereas if you're a staff accountant in a firm, your role is going to be under pressure quite soon.
What advice would you give to somebody who's planning to own their own firm?
Try and learn lessons a bit more quickly than certainly. I guess going into PwC, we had a lot of stuff given to us, but man, it took me years to learn the ropes of how to be a leader in a firm. And so, look, I think reach out and get help, and particularly get involved in sort of mentoring groups, with being led, but being collegial with others who are on the journey. And I think there's just so much value in that. That's that'd be my advice, I think.
All right, last question. One book. Can you recommend one book to our listeners?
Okay.
Just one.
Yeah. I'm not a big reader of sort of management guru books, but Measure What Matters is John Doerr, I think. So yeah, he was the guy who came out at Intel. It's a book from the 80s. And actually, my daughter works for Xero, and interestingly, she said that they use the OKR methodology from Measure What Matters in Xero, which I was really impressed with. And as somebody who's a software developer, she actually understood strategy and strategy development, which I was quite impressed with. So yeah, Measure What Matters really resonated with me as well, and it's the simple stuff. And I like that.
Yeah, timeless too. I mean, if it's written back that long ago and it's still relevant, then it's. And usually that's that foundational stuff, that fundamental stuff, is really where the wisdom is, so to speak.
I think it's been a pleasure, Brandon. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at poegroupadvisors.com.